Hello everyone, good morning. My name is George, and this morning I will be sharing, trying to help us understand how to use a terminal, both on Linux and on Windows. The reason why I'm doing this YouTube video is based on the fact that a lot of us, either by circumstances or our own decisions, would like to avoid using the terminal. You can work in the cloud. You can be a system administrator if you don't know how to work with the terminal. So it just doesn't work. Okay, I know on Windows a lot of stuff is done using the graphical interface, but when a push comes to shove, you will need to be able to understand the terminal to actually get some stuff done and actually to repair some stuff on your system as a system administrator. Okay, so this is a Linux system, Ubuntu, Focal Fossa 20.04 LTS. I'll be sharing with you, I'll be showing you how to play around with Windows commands on Linux. Windows has a new tool on Linux that is called PowerShell. It's PowerShell anyway. So PowerShell is now installed on Linux system. So I can actually do PowerShell commands on Linux. And of course, you can see my terminal. On my terminal, it's already presenting my command prompt the way PowerShell would. In Windows, you will see something similar to this. C backslash let's say programs file something and the rest of them. This is something similar you will see on Windows. Okay, but on Linux we have slash. On Linux, this is the root of every place you can go to in the Linux file structure. So in Linux, a forward slash is not just a forward slash, it's the beginning of everything. So if you want to get to anywhere on Linux, you must first of all type in the forward slash before you type in any other names of folders and files or directories, and then you can get there. On Windows, you need to type in the drive, the name of the drive with 2 colons, and then of course backslash and all that and the rest of them. Okay, so in Linux, when you want to get to any place in Linux, please forward slash first before you type any other thing. If you don't type a forward slash and you don't happen to be in that location where that folder you're looking for is, then you get an error. Okay, because the terminal will first of all look for that folder where you are, and if it doesn't find it, it will tell you it doesn't exist. Meanwhile, you're very sure you actually created that folder. Okay, so someone asked me a question about something has to do, he saved the file, and then the file he saved it to his desktop. Okay, so currently this isn't my desktop. Let me launch another terminal so that I can share. This other one is a Linux terminal. Okay, so you see the prompts are different. In Windows PowerShell, this is what you see. In Linux, you will see this. Of course, you can change this. You can change this part using your .bashrc file. In Windows, it should be possible to have a file that can change what you get to see here. Okay, but we're not here to discuss that today. Okay, so first of all, the learner actually saved the file in the desktop, and then he tried to locate the file and he couldn't do that. First of all, you need to find out where you are. So on Linux, if you want to find out where you are, you simply say present working directory. and it tells me I'm in /home/George. Now in Linux, the home directory is where every user's home directory starts from. So if I have another user called Tony, I would actually see Tony's folder, home folder, in /home/Tony. Okay. In Windows, you would have things like users, backslash, the name of the user, and all that, and the rest of them. Please take the time. It's better you spend a week trying to understand these things and then use just a few hours or a few minutes and get the job done. Okay. Don't use the process or don't use the process of having to learn while you're trying to get something done. If you're trying to do something, you don't understand something, let it go. Go online, get access to tutorials, find out, get in-depth knowledge of what you're trying to do. After you're through with that, you come back and continue. Of course, this shouldn't be done when you have a deadline. If you wait till maybe you have a deadline in the next, say, 1 day or so, and then you're trying to achieve something, and then you're trying to learn from documentation and be able to implement that stuff, you usually would not get the kind of results you want. Okay, so this thing is mainly focused on mainly targeting Windows users. So on Linux, we have the PowerShell preview. So that means we can run PowerShell's commands in Linux just as we would on Windows. That way you can, in fact, I would advise Linux system admins, most of them, of course, know that already. The ones coming up and those trying to learn, I would advise you to learn to use PowerShell commands so that when you're doing your job and you're faced a situation where you have a Windows terminal, then it is easy for you to understand. But basically, the operations of terminals, whether Windows or Linux, is basically the same. It's just that the file structures are different. And then in PowerShell, we have a verb and noun format for each command you run in your PowerShell. Okay, so first of all, let's start with the problem of the learner I talked about. He saved a file on desktop. He's trying to look for that file. He can't access the file. That means he's in the wrong location and he doesn't know how to get to the desktop. First of all, you need to know where you are. How do we get to know where we are on Windows using PowerShell? Get. Let's double tab. Whoa, and there you go. You see, it gives you all the options. Now we want to know where we are. Okay, so I think we should be doing child item, this. Okay, so get child item, and it completes, and then you hit enter. There you go. Exactly as it would be on Windows. Okay, on Linux, you simply just do list and it spits it out. If you want it to be in that format you just saw, you hit it this way and it spits it out. Okay, so this is how it would do on Windows. This is how it will do on Windows. Okay, so let's scroll up a bit and see. All right, so that's the content of, and of course it tells him directory. Okay, it shows him the directory, but this is not what we want. We wanted to know where we are currently. So let's clear the screen. Okay, so CLS is a default command on PowerShell. In Linux, it is clear. Okay, so basically if you use PowerShell, it's like you're working on Windows. Okay, all right, so let's get our location. Okay, so it has to be some location. There you go, and it returns. So I am in home path. So I am not where the desktop is. Where is the desktop? Remember, we said everything starts from home. Okay, so the Linux file structure starts from home. Okay, all right, so let's see if we can let's run the second command again that says get child item. Child item simply means get the items contained in your current location. Each of those items, be it a folder or a file, is regarded as a child item of the current folder, which is George. Okay, so let's hit this now. So let's scroll through and see if we see our desktop anywhere. There you go. So the desktop is here. Okay, so inside George, which is the group, parent group, we have our desktop. So that user should have done this. Let's do this. Set location, okay, and then the location should be no, let's do desktop. There you go. That is how you would do it on Windows. Set location. In Linux, it is CD. And in PowerShell, you can also use CD. But I'm going to use strictly Windows commands in this other terminal, and then use Linux commands in this other terminal. So let's go to the desktop here. So I do CD, and note, in Windows, these commands are not case sensitive. That means you could do a lower D and it will still bring out an upper D if that is the real way the name was spelled in your location you're trying to find. But in Linux, a capital D and a lowercase d are two different things. So you actually need to tell the Linux terminal that you are referring to the desktop spelled with a capital D, starting with a capital D. Okay, we could have one with a lowercase d. That's a different directory. In Windows, it's not the case. Okay, so let's test it out here and see whether it works the same. Let me get rid of this, and there you go. Exactly how it works in Windows. If you do a lowercase, so in Linux, you don't. In Windows, you don't need to bother about the casing, the case of the letters or the files and folders you're trying to work with. It just does that automatically for you. But on Linux, you need to actually specify that. So that's a plus for Windows users, and of course, Linux has reasons for doing that. But that's that. Okay, so let's hit enter here, set location, and there you go. Let's do that on Linux, and I'm there. And if you look at Linux, it adds this to the path or to the prompt. So you now know you're actually in desktop location. Windows, it does the same. It adds it here, and it tells you where you are. So he's now in the desktop. Then he can now run that command he wanted to run. Now, another thing I see people often do is that on Windows, people tend to put their files and folders on their desktop. No, that's not a good practice, please. I know the reason why they do that, because they feel it's easier to locate it where on the desktop than any other location. No, it's not a good practice. Learn to save things in proper locations. Windows has a user directory. Inside that user directory, you have the username, that your own user, and then you have different folders in there, documents, downloads, and the rest. Learn to save things in the proper location. When you want, say you're working on a project, you want to save that file, go to Documents, create a folder, name it after that project, and save your files in there. Don't put files on the desktop. The desktop should be clean and easy for you to put things that are very important. You could put shortcuts to programs that you use often on the desktop. So there's no point putting files and documents there. You're just cluttering the whole place. Okay, so you need to avoid that. Okay, so you see now, he is now in his location. Now let us check to see what is here. Remember, get child items in this location, hit enter, and it tells us this desktop location we have several files. The first one is old Firefox data. We have Komodo IDE, Komodo this, the desktop. Those are desktop shortcuts that if I click on them, it will launch those applications. Okay, and then it tells you who the owner is, or who the owners are of these files that you see under the name. Here it even tells you the permissions that are associated with that user. So in this case, George can actually read, write, and execute commands on this folder. That means I can change into that folder. If I were to remove the X from this folder, I would not be able to change into that folder. Now, another thing you need to know is that you need to have the understanding that every command you carry out in your graphical interface, user interface, is simply a terminal command that is run behind the scene. There's no difference. Just that they don't want to bore you with that stuff. So they just do it, you click, and then it runs it behind the scene, gets the results, and returns it to you. So basically, this is Windows. Now, how do we move around in Windows? Like I said before, you set the location, okay? In Windows, you will actually need to put in your the drive, and then a colon, and then every other thing that comes with it. Windows users, you should know that. And then, of course, pay attention to the when you open your file explorer on Windows, pay attention to the address bar. Please pay attention to that part. When you do, you will see the structures of your file. You know how it is. So if you want to run somewhere, it's very easy for you. You just type out that same file path and structure you saw, and then put it in your terminal. And of course, either you do CD if you're using PowerShell on Windows, or you do set location and it runs there. Okay. All right. So what else? Now, another important thing when using systems, software, and any other thing is that you need to learn to use the help. You need to learn to use the help. Don't just, most of us, we think we need to go online all the time to get help. No, we have help systems on every system, whether Windows or Linux. Learn to use it. If you learn to use it, most times you don't need to go online, and it's costly to go online. Okay, so assuming I didn't know, okay, let's run. Let me try and run a command. Let me clean this up. Let me do get contents. Okay, all right. It gives me a double tab, and it gives me many options. I'm talking about content, and I hit enter, and it tells me commandlets. That is what it's called. These things are called on PowerShell. The commandlets get content. Remember, I said the structure is verb, noun. Okay, have that in mind. Now, the commandlet get content at command pipeline position 1 supply values for the following character. So there's something we're missing. There's something we need to supply. We haven't given it that. Get content. What does get content do? I don't know. I'm just seeing the command. I don't know. In fact, you could just type get hyphen double tab. It spits out a lot of stuff, and then you take your time to go through them. You know, some commands are often used, so you really get really familiar with these ones, but some others are once in a while you need to do stuff using them. You go back to them. You know, you don't really remember how they work and what they are meant for, or you don't really know what this command, what a particular command to use for a particular task. Help is there. Okay. All right. So let me try something. Let me see. Let me put George, hit, and then put Lagos. Okay. Sorry, Lagos. Oh, and it's asking me more because it expects something, and I'm not giving that thing it expects. So there's a lot of problem. Okay. So what do? I just do Control-C to get out of there. There's a problem I don't understand. I need help. Get. There should be something like help. Get help. Oh, and there is. All right. Get help. And I hit enter. All right. Now look at get help. Let's go to the top. A lot, but it's okay. Display help about PowerShell commandlets and concepts. Okay, so get help is supposed to help me. How do we use get help? Online help. This is how you get help online. Type in get help, the command let's name, and then hyphen, and then online, it goes online. That is assuming you have an internet. If you don't have an internet and you want to get a comprehensive help on your system, you actually need to take time when you have internet and do this, run this command, get update help. When you do that, it uploads and downloads a lot of help documents onto your system so that you can access them offline. Okay. All right. So let's go down and see how we're supposed to use it. Okay. So these are examples It shows you examples. So we're trying to find out what get content does. We don't know. Okay, examples of get help and the rest of them. Okay, so it says to use it, you actually do get help and the search term, which in this case is a commandlet. Okay, so in this case, you're actually searching for a word or phrase in all help files. So you could say get help content, and it will search for help files that contain that particular name or that word content, and then shows you the options. So let's try that one first, and then we'll try the second one to actually focus on the command we're trying to get help for. Okay, help content. So there you go. It says add content, clear content, get content, set content. So these are all commands that have to do with get content. Okay, so we are interested in get content. So let's do get content there. Let's use our arrow key and do get content, and there you go. Hit enter. There you go. So the name is get content, and then this is the syntax. These square brackets are optional. So the part is optional. This is required. This is required because we have these angle bars. This is required. You must supply the string. What is the string? Then you have another version of this same get content, the literal path, and then pass this. Every other thing here is optional. And of course, the string here is an array. Okay, so now let's go down. So then let's look at the second one. It says aliases. Aliases is simply a name that you can use in place of the get content. So I could do GC. I could use type. It will still do the same thing. So in Linux, if I'm tired of, maybe there's a command that is a bit long and I want to use a smaller word, a name, to be able to run that command, I create an alias and then add that alias to my .bas bash rc file. And when I do that, if I want to run that command, I just write that, type that name and enter, and it goes back and checks for aliases and says, oh, this name is actually mapping to this other command, and then it takes that command and runs it and presents the result for me, to me in the terminal. Okay, so let's start for aliases and then remarks. Okay, what do we do? Let's look at remarks. Get help cannot find the help files on for this commandlet on this computer. So I don't have comprehensive documentation for get content, and it's saying that there are two things I could do. I could either or download them files by using the command use update -help, or I can simply run the command get help get content online, and it goes online. So let's do this second one. Let me copy this, copy, and then paste. Hit. It goes online. Of course, you need to have an internet access to be able to make good use of this. So it goes online. Let's see what it offers us. And there you go. A comprehensive documentation for get content. Now we're going to find how to run get content. The syntax, this is this literal path. The first one, you don't need to state a path, but I want to give a path and then get the contents of that path. So what does this get content do? Gets the content of the item at the specified location. So we can actually get, I want to know what is contained in a file. So in Linux, I will do ls, pass in the path to that file or the file name if I'm in that current location where the folder is, or sorry, folder, and it gives me the contents. In PowerShell, we can do list too, but here we're using get content. So we need to pass in the path and the name, okay, of a specified location. So let's go down and see examples of how this is used. Okay, this example gets the content of a file in the current directory. Oh, so I'm even wrong. Actually, this get content is similar to Linux's cat command. Okay, cat command. So in Windows, we have get child items. That is the same thing with ls in Linux. So in Linux, when you want to check the contents of a file without actually opening the file, you just do cat, the name of the file, or path to where the file is. In Windows, they're telling us get content does the same thing. So you do get content, and then you pass the name. You pass the name of that file to the command, and the command now checks what is in there and presents it to you. So you can quickly scan through contents of a file and decide if this is a file you're actually looking for, or you can go ahead. Okay, in this case, is even more involved here. They actually ran a loop from 1 to 100, and then for each number in this loop, they now, for each object that is returned, we add content, and then the content is added to this file, and the value we are adding is this is line $_ period. So I think this represents each count here. That's what it represents. And then after they have done this, you now get content, and then the path to the file, and there you go. So there are two ways in which you can use get content. One, you don't state any, okay, here we don't state anything. Okay, just do get content, and then here we give the literal path to it. Okay, so let me go back to my terminal. Okay, so the first one is you need to give the name, string name. The other one, you give the literal path. Okay, so let me look for a file in my desktop that I can play around with. Okay, or let me run that, let me copy that Windows command to add lines of text into a particular file. Now on Linux, if you're adding content to a file and the file doesn't exist, Linux, depending on the kind of command that you're running, Linux will actually, if it's a redirection operator you're using, Linux will actually create that file for you. And if the file exists, it simply writes, overwrites, or appends, depending on how the operators you're using. So let me copy this and put that in my PowerShell Windows. Let's see if it will work for me. Okay, so I put that here and hit enter. Boom. So something has happened, no error. So let's clean this up. Let's do get child items and go. Let's see if we have such a file. Do we? What was the file called? There you go. See the file there? So you actually can run PowerShell commands on Linux. Okay, so if you're a system administrator for with a background mostly in Linux, and you're now in a Windows only mostly environment, you can actually install this tool and run PowerShell commands to play around. You know, from your system, you can actually work with Windows machines. Okay, so that file has been there, has been created. See, the file never existed, but part of what the command does is if the file doesn't exist, it creates it and writes to the file. If it does, it either overwrites or append, depending. Okay, all right. So let's get the contents of that file. Let's go back to where we came from. Okay, you see here, it says get content, and it passes the path. Okay, the name of the file. See, here in Windows, it is period and backslash. In Linux, it is period and /. So let's see how it works on our end. So let's get content. Okay, path. Let's hit this. It gives you. See, it gives you all the options. That means that hyphen I added is actually an option that should be used with that command. And then when I hit double tab, it just presents all the options that you could pass into it. So we're doing path. So I pick up PA, and there you go. And then it asks me for the path. Let me see. So I'm on what you call it? I'm on Linux. Let's see whether that backslash would work, whether it has been designed to work that way. So I'm interested in the name of the file was it started with L, so I'm not sure. And there you go. Immediately it switches from backslash to /. Okay, so these things are just there for you to use. Just take the time to get to use it. It's there. Windows, fine. If you're a Windows user, believe me, if you are working with the cloud and the rest, you need to know commands you can run from your terminal. You might not always have access to a graphical user interface, and at times opening so many consoles to work might not be in your favor. So you can just use Tmux or any other multiplexing tool that can split your screen into several segments, and then from each of these segments you can now hit your commands and work. Okay, so let's do this, and there you go. It returns every item in that file, every line. So there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go. So Linux, Windows users, there's no excuse, it's very easy. Let's do it on Linux and see. On Linux, I'll do cat line. It doesn't go because that file started with a capital letter. So I actually have to put capital letter and then hit it, and the same thing returns. So that's the structure of the Linux command line, cat line. And for Windows, the structure is simply get content, the path to the content, and then it runs. Okay, the first format for this command didn't actually pass a literal path. So let's do it this way, and it still works. Okay, to show you that it works, let's clean this, and we can just pass this and hit enter. It returns. So assuming you're in the directory where that file you're trying to get the contents are in, you don't need to pass the path option to that command. You simply just give it the name of the file and it does its business. But if you're quite far from where the file is and you actually want to check the content of that file from that location, you don't want to go there and come back and all that. You stay there and then you pass in the path option and then give it the path, full path name, absolute path names to where that file is, and then run the command, and of course it works for you. Okay, so Windows users, please, that's how simple the shell is. Okay, so with this you should be able to walk around and move around, and please go online. You have Microsoft documents on PowerShell, Google it, download PowerShell if you don't have it. If you have, of course, work with it. I advise you to take your time to get to know, the commands that are associated with PowerShell and how you can use them to manipulate and work around. The Google Cloud we work with, there's an installation guide on how for PowerShell and how to use PowerShell commands. That is, these commands are structured in the PowerShell form and not in Linux form on Windows. Check out the documentation, learn how to set this up so that you can do get bucket object, rather than do it the way it's done on Linux, so that you don't get too far from Windows environment that you're used to. Okay, so it's there. It's just for you to take your time to learn to use it. Okay, I'm a Linux guy. I know a bit of Windows. I don't need to be too deep into it, but I know my way around Windows. I don't get lost, and but my main focus is on Linux, and that's where I try to perfect my skills. Okay, thank you for watching. If this was helpful, please leave a like and then leave your comments. If there's anything you didn't understand, leave your comments and I'll surely get back to you. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.